when people have affairs, it's often to escape
Yeah.
what it is that they have at home. And if what you have at home is amazing, if it's incredible, if you're having fun with your spouse, no one can take your eyes off of what you already have.
You're not escaping anything, because if you feel that way about your relationship and your home life, then you can't wait to get back home.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's an important piece.
Hello, and welcome to a Purpose-Driven Marriage podcast. We are Duane and Nadine Stewart, and we love any and all things marriage. You've tuned into the right place if you're looking for actionable, practical tips to help you overcome real-life obstacles common to real relationships. We're here to help you strive for a marriage as God has designed it and not as the world has defined it. Because why settle for a good marriage when you can have a great one?
And we're so glad that you're joining us today. I'm really excited for this topic today, babe.
Yeah.
So we are talking about four ways to affair-proof your marriage. And who knows, we may end up throwing in a fifth. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Something that may come to mind. Yeah.
So who knows? Gosh, in my line of work, unfortunately, this is something that I have to hear about and deal with. And I can tell you, it absolutely breaks my heart when I see a couple come in. I mean, the good thing is they're coming in, they're looking for help for their relationship. But the sad thing is how they got here in the first place. Like, you've got to imagine every couple, or at least most couples, start off just so deeply in love, thinking it's you and me, babe, forever and ever. And then at some point, this betrayal, this infidelity happens. And it happens more often than it should. And so, there are ways to help guard your marriage so that you're not having to deal with this. And so we wanted to talk to you guys about some of the most effective ways that we know of to affair-proof your marriage.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we get started?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go.
All right, so number one, putting guardrails around your relationship. What does that look like to you, babe?
Yeah. What it means is you have to really understand that there are a lot of ways for you to at least slowly fall into a situation where you could be unfaithful. And one of the things that I think about quite often is like conversations. Conversations can be very, very intimate. Like, you can be in a work setting and all of a sudden you're talking about all these different things, and maybe it's with someone of the opposite sex. And one of the things that you really have to kind of guard yourself with is like the type of information that you divulge during those conversations. You have to keep it pretty general. Don't talk about your marriage to somebody that's of the opposite sex. Don't talk about some of the challenges that you might have with your spouse, with somebody that's another female, if you're a guy, if you're a woman, another male. I mean, those types of things are very intimate and private, and you have to keep that between you and your wife.
And, to add to that, it's not even just about what's going on in your relationship, but even like your own needs, right? The things are lacking in your life. I had once met with a couple where one of the things that he mentioned is the reason for his affair is he wasn't getting certain needs met at home. And so that intimacy, that connection, and it wasn't even physical, it was that emotional intimacy that he was longing for from his wife. It wasn't happening because they were raising children and she was busy. I mean, this is not an excuse, by the way. It is not an excuse to allow that to happen, but this is what he claimed his reason was.
Right.
He just wasn't getting it at home. And so there should not be those conversations happening between you and someone of the opposite sex that should be dedicated only to your spouse. And that includes when it comes to texting.
Oh, yeah.
It
for
doesn't.
sure.
Oh, unfortunately, in this day and age, texting, social media.
Well, Nadine, so one of the things that I have challenges with, and I've always kind of had this challenge, because I have, I work with males, I work with females in all different facets of my job. And sometimes you do have to text with people. And one of the things that we talked about ourselves is like, when you're communicating, it's work related, and that's it. You know what I mean? It's, hey, where are you going to be today? Okay, perfect. I'm going here, you're going there, or let's talk about this one account or whatever. Like, it has to be something very, very specific to work, not necessarily. So, hey, what's going on tonight? How, what are you going to be doing later? Or, hey, what's going on this weekend? None of that stuff, right? I mean, it has to be very professional. And that's going to allow you to kind of stay on task and not kind of dip into the deep waters of the personal. And before you know it, all of a sudden you're talking about something that you shouldn't be talking about through text.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, social media, the DMs. I remember I did a post and it was about
we did.
One of the biggest problems with social media is it allows you to have a life that is completely separate and private. Like you can exist in a world that's all your own and no one in your own home even needs to know about it.
Right.
And so there's a lot of secrecy that can happen with social media. And I can't tell you how many couples have been sitting in my office where the infidelity happened.
That's where it started.
Yep, as a result of social media.
Yeah.
An old friend, an old boyfriend, an old girlfriend, or just someone that was following them or they followed or whatever it may be. All of a sudden, they're sending private messages that seem innocent enough to start.
Oh, it's just a friend, like an old friend. They just try to catch up to me and all that stuff. Yeah. You know what? No, that's not a good idea.
Exactly. And then the next thing for putting guardrails around your relationship is, and this was actually something that Duane is really adamant about, and that is
So no, listen, the thing that it's really important to me is this, having a phone and then making your phone private and it's only for you and nobody else is a problem, because that means that you're allowing yourself to do things that you probably would not want your wife, or in our case, our kids, or in the broad sense of everything, Jesus, to see, right? So we have to, everything that we do on our phones, we have to expect and be okay with and welcome anybody that's important to us to be able to see those things that are on our phones. Sharing passwords, all those different things I think are really important, because if there's basically things that you're holding back and you're keeping private to only yourself and you're not sharing with your spouse, which leads you down the path that you don't want to go down.
Yeah, in our house, I don't have the option to keep my phone private.
Yeah.
Everyone in our family knows my password because they love going through my photos. Our kids, they love seeing pictures that I take of them, even though they pretend to complain about it. Mom, that's so cringy.
Don't take that picture. And then later on, they'll be like, can I see your phone? I want to see those pictures. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so I don't have that option. But, here's an example of something that Duane and I have done with our phones. Our photos are all connected. So if I were to take pictures or he was to take pictures, we're not together, the photos are automatically, instantly uploaded to a shared file.
Right.
And it's funny because when we started that, it wasn't even with the intent to keep ourselves above board, but more so because we wanted to share pictures. Yeah. He told me that I have a tendency to have all of the kids' pictures and he'd like to have them too. Because Duane I
don't take pictures.
He does not take pictures.
Actually, I do take pictures. I just only take pictures of receipts.
For his expense reports and food.
And then food, I don't take a lot of pictures of food.
You
really,
have
just
a lot of food pictures on your phone.
When you look at my phone, it's mainly receipts and then brain anatomy. Those are the two things. Vessels that are in the brain with that procedures.
If I can tell you, in the last 2 weeks, I think you've got a picture of some beautiful dessert that you did not share with me.
Yeah.
And
because I was at work.
Yep.
That was for a work meeting.
And then we had Indian food the other night.
Yes,
and
we
so
did.
it was.
That was actually really good.
It was delicious. And so Duane took a picture of that.
Yeah.
And so he's got more pictures of food than he does of our children, which is why.
So that means I have 2 pictures of food. I have one
This
picture
week.
of my child. That's what you're saying.
No,
Okay,
this
cool.
week. I'm just teasing. No, but that is one of the things that we did, and we just never got rid of it. So we have access to all the photos and all the videos that show up on both of our phones.
Do you see those videos of people on social media and they have their phone next to their food, right? And their spouse kind of reaches for their phone. They reach in that specific direction. And then the other one is protecting their phone because they're thinking that they're going to get their phone. They're actually protecting their food. You know what I mean? I think that's really pretty funny.
Oh, gosh. Well, so the next one under putting guardrails around your relationship is, and this one I would say is kind of controversial. I remember doing a post about this on Instagram a couple of years ago, and I had a lot of people that had something to say about it. But that is about having friends of the opposite sex. Okay, so this is what we think about this. If you have, or if you feel the need to have a friend of the opposite sex, what we recommend is that they be a couple and you and your spouse are friends with both of them.
Right.
Right. And so I hear a lot about, oh, but my best friend is a guy, or my best friend is a woman. No, your best friend should be your spouse.
That's right.
And any friendships that you have with a single person or someone of the opposite sex should be one where your spouse is involved in that friendship.
That's right.
And their spouse, ideally, if they're married, also is involved in that friendship.
Hopefully they are. But if they're not, I mean, if they're truly your best friend and they care about you in that way, well, they better get to know your spouse. You know what I mean? Because they're not going to be friends with you unless they're also friends with your spouse. I think it's a package deal at that point. Once you become married and the two become one flesh, now they're not just friends with you, they're friends with your significant other too.
Exactly. And going back to one of the things that we were talking about with texting, we have this rule that if we are going to text a person,
that's right,
a person of the opposite sex, and it's not like a work specific text, right? So this is just, we're just friends. So we're just texting some fun things, some memes or whatever. Duane and I have this rule where we include either each other or we include the other person's spouse.
Yeah.
So Duane and I, we have friends that are couples, and sometimes I need to send a message to the husband of our friend.
Yeah.
And so I automatically either include his wife, or I include Duane, or I include both of them, so that we are in this big group text together.
Yeah.
And we're not texting each other one-to-one.
Right.
And again, recognize what it is that we're protecting, right? It's not like this isn't a big deal. This is our marriage.
Yeah.
Our children rely on us to be doing the right thing and protecting what it is that provides them with security in their life.
And you know what that really does? Even though I know that I'm not even in the conversation whatsoever, like I don't even respond to it at all. I'm like, I just know, okay, thank you, Nadine, for doing that. It just instills trust. That's really what it is. It's like, okay, my wife really cares about how this looks, and she is putting guardrails around this relationship to ensure that there's nothing that could be seen as suspicious, right? We're being above reproach, above blame. And I think that's important.
You know what's interesting about that, babe? So Duane and I did not talk about this before this episode. So he says that it instills trust, which I really appreciate that that's what he's receiving. But when I do that, when I add either the friend's wife or I add Duane to the text conversation, that wasn't even what I thought about.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about was the fact that I want to show my husband and the friend's spouse respect.
Yeah.
Like the other person who also happens to be my friend, right? I'm friends with his wife too.
Yeah.
His wife, and this is her husband that we're talking about that I'm texting, right? She holds the key to the invisible fence, right, that they have around their relationship. She should get to decide who can have conversations with her husband of the opposite sex. That is one of the benefits that you get when you're married to another person.
Right.
Our relationship is not just any other male-female relationship. We are married. And so Duane should get a say in who it is that I get to have conversations with. And so I involved him out of respect for him.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it. That's good.
Yeah. And then the next thing, oh gosh, we kind of talked about this, but this is boundaries within your job, with your coworkers, with your clients. This was actually something that I remember struggling with before. I had asked Duane what his thoughts were about me seeing clients of the opposite sex. And you'll have to understand the kind of work that I do when I'm working with couples, the conversations are very private, and couples need to meet together But there are times when it is to the benefit of their relationship to get to meet with me one-on-one. And it's usually times when they want to be able to say what's on their mind without causing harm to the relationship, without causing further harm, but they just need to talk it through. Or when they're looking to work on themselves without needing to be reminded at home, because you have to remember, sometimes when the relationship isn't going well, we can get petty.
Yeah.
We can start saying things like, oh, remember what Nadine said you're supposed to be working on? I don't see you working on that, right? And so sometimes it is beneficial to meet with couples one-on-one. It was actually my client's idea because initially I did not do that because I wanted to establish boundaries. But after talking with Duane and realizing that this was a big need that clients had, I started meeting with them one-to-one.
It's definitely helpful. And I can see how if there is a challenge with just one person, say the husband within that relationship, and there's things that they have to work on in order to move forward, they're not going to do that in the presence of their spouse because there's already tension right there in the first place. So I get that piece of it. And I think that's an important part of what you do. We talked about it quite a few times and in depth. And I know and I trust that you're putting the boundaries and the parameters in place to make sure that everything is all good.
Absolutely. And Duane does the same thing because he has to meet with clients. And so he makes sure that if the client is a female, there's always a third person.
Yep.
Right? Like he doesn't meet with a female coworker for dinner, for example. Like they don't do that. There's always 3 people. And that's, again, just putting guardrails around our relationships so that
because they're married too, you know what I mean? So I think just the same way I think that you kind of talked about our friend and his wife and the respect, it's the same thing from their end. It's like they have a husband. you know
exactly.
what I mean? And if I'm the husband, I would want to make sure, I would want to be ensured that that other person has really the same mindset that I do. Like I'm just protecting my wife. I just want to make sure that everything is all good. So
absolutely. So the second thing you're probably like, gosh, you've gone over like 7 things. No, that was like a subcategory.
There's
here.
like 1A through F.
No, but the second thing, so the first thing is putting guardrails around your relationship, and it encompasses everything that we talked about. But the next thing is nourishing your relationship.
Yeah.
Nourishing your relationship and
spending time. Right. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as a couple is just spending time together, doing things that we love to do together, like go on dates, go on vacations, go on walks. You're the one that likes to go on walks. So I walk with you with our dog, and I actually love doing that because it allows us to push, not be thinking about the work, not be thinking about all the other challenges that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but just kind of going out and just spending quality time. Quality time is something that's important to me, and I know it's important to you. So I think that's probably the first and foremost thing that we do that really prioritizes our relationship.
Well, what that also does is it gives us the opportunity to have the intimate communication or even just regular communication. I mean, let's be honest here.
It's just kind of release some of the things that we've, have pent up, and you just want to talk to your spouse about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, how work is going, what it's like raising young adults and helping them out of the nest.
Or young kids.
Or young kids, exactly. Young kids, or just talking about what's going on in the world. Like just being able to touch base and check in with one another. All that happens when you spend time together.
Yeah.
And the thing is, there's this misconception that just because you're married, it's just all about work. Right. It's just all about work. Now we got to work to stay together, work to raise a family, work to do this, work to do that. And when people have affairs, it's often to escape what it is that they have at home. And if what you have at home is amazing, if it's incredible, if you're having fun with your spouse, no one can take your eyes off of what you already have.
You're not escaping anything, because if you feel that way about your relationship and your home life, then you can't wait to get back home.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's an important piece. But, the intimate and regular communication that we talk about, I think that's so important, because what we want to stay away from is having a transactional relationship. Meaning that I go to work, you go to work, we're gone most of the day. You come back home. Hey, what's for dinner? Okay, you eat, you sit down at the table, you don't say anything, or you say, hey, pass the ketchup or barbecue sauce or whatever. Great meal, thank you. And then you sit down in front of the TV until you fall asleep, and you do the same thing the next
rinse,
day.
repeat.
You know what I mean?
Right?
That's not a good way for us to, I mean, maybe once in a while that does happen.
Yes.
Because,
we're just tired.
It's just, you're tired,
We're
right?
tired and we're old.
But
that's what it is.
But, there definitely comes a time when you're like, oh, you know what? When's the last time we were able to go for a walk? When was the last time we had a good conversation? We have to make sure and acknowledge it and recognize that time and go for a walk and just reconnect.
Oh, yeah. The one thing that I love to do, and guys, I am like the queen of scheduling this, but we do overnights. Mm-hmm. Even if it's overnight, like within 5 miles of our house, it is just the two of us. Yeah. And we're sleeping someplace else. We're waking up someplace else. And we're getting the opportunity just to reconnect intimately from an emotional to a physical level. Mm-hmm. And there's no interruption. It's just us. And we can have just the best of time together. And so that is like probably one of the things.
That's the next one.
Yeah, that's one of the things I look forward to. But yeah the next one, Duane wanted to get to this. Yeah. He's like, come on, hurry up. It's physical intimacy.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. Why is that so important, babe?
Well, because, males in general just love I'll just talk from me. I just love being, physically intimate. It's just one thing that helps me to feel closer to you. There's a connection there. You know what I mean? It draws me in, and there's something psychological that also happens after, like the next day or even a couple of days after. You just feel like a love and admiration, right? Yes. For you. And I want to come and hug you, and I want to send you text messages and all these different things because I just feel love for you. You know what I mean? Well, and I think that's really important. And if you're not doing it, then there's something missing.
Yeah. When it comes to physical intimacy, I think studies show that it's about 80% of men that connect physically, and that leads to emotional connection for them. And for women, 80% of us like to connect emotionally, which then leads to the physical connection for us, right? I mean, I love how God designed that because what's that, a symbiotic relationship? Like we actually need each other. Yeah. And it's so funny because Duane's not kidding about that whole physical connection and his need for that, because there are nights when we fall asleep and we're holding hands. I mean, that sounds so cheesy. It's almost embarrassing to admit, but at worst, I have my leg on him because he needs to feel connected to me somehow. So I have to be touching him in some way. So it could be a toe, it could be a foot, it could be a whole leg, it could be my hand. But he needs to know that I'm close by, and then he sleeps a whole lot better.
Yep.
Right?
It's just like my binky.
Yes, I am his binky. I'm guessing though, babe, that you're not the only one.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's a lot of men out there that can relate to that, and many women too.
Right.
So the next thing that we do to nourish our relationship is praying together. Yeah. That is so huge. The sense of security and connection that gives me as your wife is huge. Yeah. Like hearing you pray over me out loud, and then me getting to pray just my heart, and you get to hear it. That is just huge for me.
You said praying together, right?
Praying together.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Because there should be a level of praying for your spouse when you're just out and about, right? And then there's also a level of praying together. Like those are two different things in my mind. And so I pray every day for you. When I leave the house, I'm praying for you, praying for the family, doing all those different things. But as we get together, it's an intimate act to pray. And it's also an intimate act to study, right? And to read the word as well. And so when we do that, we're talking to the Lord, but it's also a way for your spouse to see your heart. And so once that she or he is able to see your heart, it just draws you in closer. There's a certain amount of love and devotion and intimacy that does happen when you pray that you can't really duplicate anywhere else.
Right. Here is the last one under nourishing your relationship. And this one, might also be controversial, but I stand by it. And I know that there are people out there that will agree with me, and there's going to be people out there that will probably disagree. Yeah. But I think keeping myself physically attractive, like for you, because your standard of attractiveness should be me and vice versa. But keeping myself as well groomed and polished and whatever else you may want to call it, I think is important. Because when you met me, you were attracted to my heart.
Yeah.
But you were drawn to me because you were attracted to my appearance as well, right? Like you were drawn to that.
Yeah, for sure.
And so just because we have half a dozen kids and life happens does not mean that I should let myself go. Yeah. But even more importantly, and this is something that some of my friends know this about me and they used to make fun of me, but I feel like if there's ever a time where I will leave the house and get dressed up and look my best or try to look my best for other people, then at the very least, I need to give my husband that like regularly, right? I remember when I was back in corporate world, and, you know, for work, I used to have to get really dressed up and I'd make sure that I would get dressed like as early as I could. So Duane would see me before he had to leave for work or before I had to leave for work. So he would see me looking my best first thing in the morning. And then if I were to get home from work before him, I'd keep all my clothes on, even my heels, right? Even my heels, I would keep it on just so when he got home from work, he would still see me, you know, looking good. And then as soon as he walked in, I gave him a kiss.
Getting sweats, girl.
I threw those uncomfortable clothes off and I put on my sweatpants and put my hair up in a bun.
It's all
but
good.
I wanted to make sure that I was always my best for him. Because if I'm willing to do that for everyone else, then my husband shouldn't get my leftovers.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people also look at it, they think of it as physical. And if you've had kids and through pregnancy, your body changes, like the husband, I'll just speak for myself. I just love you how you are. You know what I mean? If you changed, it's all good. If you haven't changed, if it went right back to how you were before, that's great too. I think for me, it's more of a nice to have, but not a need to have. I love you exactly the way you feel the best for yourself, right? I think that the challenge is that sometimes for women, they don't feel sexy if they don't feel that they look sexy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think that's what you deal with sometimes too. So I want you to feel if sexy for you means that you need to get back to where you were 10 years ago or whatever it was before baby. Okay, fine. Do that. You know, if sexy is that you need to wear the red suit that's got the pencil skirt, you know what I mean? And leave that on for me with the heels. Okay, that's great because I like that too. But ultimately, I want you to feel good about yourself. And once you feel good about yourself, then you've given yourself permission to feel free to just kind of take that how you would need to take it.
That's so good, babe. I hope the husbands out there are listening. I hope they're listening. Ladies, forward this podcast to them. Go ahead and mark it right at this spot, this point, because that's so true. You know, that helps me want to be physically intimate, you know, when I feel sexy. And you do make me feel that way, babe. So thank you. So the next one, we had putting guardrails around your relationship and then nourishing your relationship. The third is guarding or staying in control of your mindset. Keeping your thoughts of your spouse positive and avoiding that spiraling into negative thinking is so important. This is actually something that I teach. It's one of the first homework assignments that I give couples when I meet with them one-on-one. At the end of our session, I tell them that this is not just a repair tactic. So if their relationship is going through a season where it's not so great, but this is also a preventative tactic. So this keeps you from going through those hard times in the relationship where you're not liking each other very much. But I have them think about something they love, admire, respect, or appreciate about their spouse, like on a daily basis. I tell them, hey, just spend, whether it's a minute a day or if you want to focus for 10 minutes a day, like meditate on whatever that is. Because here's the thing. Your brain will believe whatever you tell it.
That's right.
Right? It's like your brain can't tell the difference. And so if you allow yourself to spiral into a negative narrative, your brain will believe that. And what will happen is you will have a tendency to see more and more of those negative traits, those negative qualities
Right.
about your spouse.
Right.
And I love that it is in the Bible, right?
Right.
This is biblical. When you look at Philippians 4:8, it tells us, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
Yes.
Right?
Meditate on it.
Exactly. Meditate on it. Like, that's what we're called to do. And so guarding what you allow to penetrate your mind is super important.
Yeah. Because what that does is it affects number one and number two, right?
It does.
It affects the guardrails, and it also affects the nourishment of the relationship. If you don't have the right mindset and you're not thinking about your spouse in a positive way, then you're going to let the guardrails down, and you're not going to nourish your relationship the way you need to nourish it. So that's almost number one. You know what I mean? I think that's that's kind of the first thing that you with your couples work on before you go to anything else. It's like, we need to change your perspective.
Yeah. And when your mindset is right, it makes it easier for you to make your spouse the standard.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? The standard for beauty, the standard for a good wife, a good husband, a good father, a good mother, whatever it might be. It makes it easier for you to use them as your standard. So you're comparing anyone else out there to them rather than you comparing them to other people that you're idolizing.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah. I love it. I love that.
And so
And the last one, right?
The last one.
It should be red flashing lights. That's what you should be seeing right now. It's like, be on alert. So when you really think about when you walk out, and I kind of think about guys because I'm a guy in this situation, and you're like scanning the environment, is more about being offensive than defensive. Now you are ensuring that you are aware of all of the challenges that are out there in front of you, and you're avoiding that. Right? You are purposefully and intentionally saying, you know what? No, I see what's coming. I am not going in that direction. I'm going in the other direction. One of the things that always affects me, it makes me cringe sometimes, it gives me goosebumps, is when the Bible talks about the devil lurking, basically walking to and fro along the earth, right? The devil is always looking out for who he is going to affect next. And what the word says in 1 Peter, it says the devil goes to and fro looking for someone, just like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour, to just consume.
That's scary.
It is scary. That's why I have a total visual of it. But the next step is to flee from it, right? To resist the devil, because we have to recognize that, like, when we walk out, there's always somebody trying to attack us all the time. And if we are not aware of it, then you're an easy target. You know what I mean? You're an easy target. And so we really have to, especially as men, to recognize that every day you walk out there, you have to be on offense to ensure that you don't give the devil a foothold into your life and into your mind, knowing that he's out there, knowing that he's trying to attack you, and avoiding those situations that could get you in trouble.
That's good, babe. I have nothing else to add to that. That was really good. So I think we'll end at that.
I got one more.
Oh, you do?
So
You do.
we talked about number 5. We could come up with number 5, but you know what? Number 5 for me is, and I think that's for anybody, is that this is also a mindset thing, right? Don't think that it can't happen to you.
Yes.
Think about it from that perspective. You walk outside, you be like, I'm not concerned. You know, it's okay. That's somebody else. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, those are the people that go to whatever, right? Like, no, don't do that. Don't think that it can't happen to you. Because the first time you do that, where you think that it's not going to be you, then that's when it does happen. You're letting your guard down.
Oh, yeah. Remember one of our first episodes with our friends Brad and Lisa Valencia?
Yep.
And we did that interview with them, and they talked about how life was good, right? Their relationship was going just fine. They were a happy family, raising their kids together, and all seemed well and then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, if you guys have not heard that episode,
I can
yeah,
listen
please
to it.
go back and listen to it. It was with Brad and Lisa Valencia. So just take a look at one of our first episodes and listen to that, because it was just an incredible testimony of how God just really healed their relationship, because really at that point, at what they went through, he was the only one who could do anything for them. And so it's a great episode to listen to. But yeah, that's really good, babe. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
See? I knew we'd come up
That's
with
another
5.
one. Yeah, that's another one.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening in. And we hope that this has helped you guys, to continue on your way to that purpose-driven marriage.
Amen.
We'll see you next time.
All right.